Good morning everyone, and we are about to start the document object model, that is short form it is called as DOM. Let's see what is a DOM and how it can be used in JavaScript. Okay, this DOM, document object model, that is it's always used in JavaScript, and it will interact with your HTML document. And this, like when you are going to use API, that is the application programming interface. Okay, whenever you want to accomplish through the any that is programming interface, that is called as your API, which I said, and actually that is called as your document object model. And according to W3C, as we have discussed earlier, World Wide Web Consortium, that they have defined the DOM as the platform and the language neutral interface that will allow programs and script to dynamically access and update the content, structure, and the style of the document. So it means that it's giving you a platform. Okay, it's a language neutral interface. So using that, what you are going to do? You are going to dynamically access or going to update the content, structure, and the style of the document. That is actually your DOM. Let's understand like how the document, that is DOM, will work. Okay, so we already now know that what is DOM, but by another name. Let's see the tree structure from the chapter 2, which we have used starting in the HTML tree, right? Document root, when we have discussed. And this is actually, it is also called as your DOM. In another way, it is also called as a DOM tree with root. Why? If you see that at the top, right, that is the document. From that document only, there all your nodes are going to be, that is, connected. That is either sibling nodes, either child nodes, and for that another child node, for there the parent node. So this root, that is the architecture from the HTML, this is also considered as a document tree. And from here you can understand the simple way. That means when you want to deploy your HTML, how you are going to do? Somewhere you have to document, that means you have to display your document. That means you require a document. That means it is going to be your root will be your document. And then the HTML. Then HTML will be having node like head. In the head, you know that you will be having meta, title, script, whatever you want to use. And the same with sibling nodes, you have like body tag, right? In the body tag, there are so many child nodes are there, like whatever the elements we have studied, that all like H1 to H6, paragraph, image, H2, division, whatever you want to use, you can use. And if you are using any other node below that, that will be again for that is the child node, and remaining is the parent node, right? Like that way it is there. This is your DOM tree. Then when we talk about the node, what is the DOM node? Okay, in the DOM, that is the document object model, always we will pronounce here as a DOM, that each element within the HTML document whatever you are using in your HTML, that all it will be called as a node. Just now we saw, right? We were using the HTML head. This all paragraph, this all will be called as your node. If the DOM is a tree, that means if it is the tree, then each node is an individual branch. Obviously, every individual node, it's having own branches. Like you have used head. Head is a node, but its branch is title tag and meta tag you can use. Even you can use script tag, right? So these are the considered under the, that is the DOM, under the DOM tree. And generally, if you talk, then there are three different types of node we call. That is the element nodes, text node, and attribute nodes. All nodes in the DOM share a common set of properties and methods. One is the element, then text, and attribute. And whatever the node in the DOM is there, it's all having a common properties and method. Okay, let's see here the example for the element, text, and attribute, how it will be there. You can see I'm using example here a paragraph tag, right? In the paragraph I have given some text like photo of conservatory font in, and then I am giving anchor tag, hyperlinking, and I am giving some link and some, through that you are going to be access here, and close the paragraph. Now what will happen if you take a look? The paragraph is your element node. Then only you are going to form your tree. Then your paragraph will become your element node, because from this element only you are going to specify the text or any other element you can define. You cannot define any element, right, in simply in the image only, right, because the image is only self-content, right? And I am taking example here as a paragraph. The text what you are using, photo of this sentence, this will be considered as a text node. Why? Because it's as simple, the name itself is a text. That means the text sentence, whatever you are using, that will be called as your text node. But again, if you look at here, you have an anchor tag. But this anchor tag, again you have, there is the container, because this is the container tag. Again you have a central part, that is text node. This element node, again you have an attribute. What is the attribute? That is hyper reference. You are giving a hyper reference. So this will be called as your attribute node. And again you are using a text, that is the sentence central part. That central part is a text node, right? This is the thing. This is the things, the difference between these three types of nodes, that is the element, text, and attribute. What are the essential node object properties we have? We have the several property of the DOM nodes that are like attribute. If you are going to define attribute, that means it will be collection of node attribute. Then child node. What is the child node? A node list of child node for this node. That means when you are going to connect to the next node, right? Then you will be having first child, last child, next sibling, node name, node type, node value, parent node, and the previous sibling. These all properties can be defined into the node of DOM. Whatever you want, you can define accordingly. Right? So this way you can use, and you can use the property. Now we have the document object. Okay, document object is the root JavaScript object that is going to represent your entire HTML document. Okay, that means we have now learned about the document nodes. Now about the document DOM object. When we talk about the document object, actually it is the root JavaScript object which is going to represent your entire HTML document, and it will contain some properties, some method, and that will be extensively for the development, and it will be globally accessed to the entire document. How you can specify them? When we are learning about that, it will be representing in the entire HTML document. Then how it will be there? It will be like specifying the doc type. Okay, hope you remember we have used doc type. The same way you can define the object like this way. The variable a, okay, that means you are going to define a variable, and you are going to define document.doctype.net. So document type, that is the name, and it can be accessible through a. You know that it can be accessible anywhere, that means inside the HTML document. Same way, if you want to specify the page encoding, that is the ISO 8859-1 format, then you can do this way. You have to define a variable b, okay, and then you are going to use the property like document.input encoding. So your page, whatever you are going to use, that will be encoded into the certain ISO format. Like this way we will be using. Okay, this is the document object. Then what are the methods we have? When you have the object, definitely there will be the method. Then there are the methods, like maybe we can create attribute. Then you are going to use create attribute method, and you can see, remember, HTML is not case sensitive, but this JavaScript is the case sensitive. Then I have to define the method create attribute, that will be creating for attribute. If you want to create an element node, then you are going to use create element. If you want to create text node, then you write create text node. You can see here T and N is capital letter. Then next, that is the get element by ID. If you want to return, that means you want to call any element and you want to match with the parameter, right? Then you have to define the parameter in that is the ID, and you can return the element. Okay. The same way, if you want to, that is return node list of element, okay, list of element you want to match, then you are going to use here like get elements by tag name, and you have to pass the parameter as a name. Like this way you can use these methods into the DOM. You can see the example over here. You want to access node, okay, then as I mentioned, you have to use get element by ID and get element by tag, right? Now what we'll do, as simple, you use a body tag. Obviously here your remaining HTML and head title will be there, head tags will be there. Then I'm using here body tag. You can see in the division I'm defining the ID as a latest component, right, or comment, whatever you want, or latest post, whatever you want to define, you can define it. But when you are going to define in the JavaScript, you can see that I am defining here a variable that is ABC, that is equal to document.getElement by ID. That means it will be accessed from the JavaScript. Whatever the properties you are going to define for this getElement by ID, that means variable ABC, that is going to be accessed here within this area. Okay, and some paragraph you are going to write, close the division, again write the division tag, and some other the HTML elements, you can see that. And the entire document, whatever you are using, because here you can see I am using here division, another one division tag, and this is the another division tag. These two division tag will be, if you want define, that means these are the two list of division. then you have to access using the list. So you have to use get element by tag name. What is the tag name? Tag name is div. So that is the div. By div tag you can access these node. Like this way you can define. Then element node object. The type of object what you are going to return. That means we have just now used the method that is like document.getElement by ID. Okay, as per the in previous we have seen just now, right? So that is the element node. This will represent an HTML element in the hierarchy, and it will contains your opening tag and the closing tag, and it can itself contain more element also. It depends on your requirement, how you want to define, how you want to access the element by ID. You can see here, like I have used here like class name. If you want to access, that is the element node properties, you have the class ID, inner HTML, style, and tag name. When you are going to use class name, that means the current value of class attribute. That means you are defining, right, division and some class name that you are going to define. If you want to current value of the ID of particular element, then you are going to define the property for ID. Inner HTML, if you want to represent all the things inside of the tag, then you are going to use this one. Then you want to style attribute, then you have to use a style attribute element. You can read and you can modify this property. And the same way, the tag name of the element. These are the property for the element. Now, if you want to modify a DOM element, how we can do that? To modify the DOM element, okay, we have a method called document.write. We have just now seen that, right? When you want to use document.write method, that means it will create the output to the HTML page from JavaScript. It's not in the HTML. That means you have something output, okay, and that output that is in JavaScript. You are writing some printing statement in JavaScript, and that you want to print on the HTML document. Then how you can do that? To do this, it will be happen through the document.write method and on JavaScript. Okay. Then this the modern JavaScript program, whatever now we are using. So we'll want to write the HTML page, but in the particular location, not always at the bottom. That means generally sometimes people have, the developer have the habit of writing JavaScript, okay, at the bottom. Okay, then you can use anywhere. Again, you can use in upper side also. You can see in many programming languages, even JavaScript will be at the bottom also. And using this document, that is DOM, document object model document, and HTML DOM element object, we can exactly that using inner HTML properties. Whenever you are going to define, that means you are defining the inner HTML property. Okay. Now the variable, like you can see the example. I am defining a variable like latest. Just now we have defined a ID for the division tag. Then I am defining here document.getElement by ID. That means you are going to get the latest element. Now what you have to do? Now you have to print somewhere, right? Then you need some variable. Then again I will take the variable. What do you want? Where you are going to print. So this need to be print on inner HTML page. Then you have to define a variable is equal to latest dot. That means your variable what you are using here. That variable that you are going to access, that latest dot inner HTML. And now we have to print this latest file, right? So that means inner dot, that means latest dot Guys, is visible? I'm audible and the presentation is clear, right? Thank you. Okay. Then when you want to print this, you can see over here I'm using your latest .inner HTML. What do you want to print? Old message. What is the old message? That is from the latest. Okay. Then you are going to use, see the paragraph tag I'm using. This is the way that you can print directly into the JavaScript. We are changing the HTML using inner HTML here. So you can modify your DOM element and then you can print with help of your inner HTML. That you can do that. Furthermore, as we seen that, right, if you want to remove some child, okay, or you want to some append, some add it, then how you can do that? The same way you can do that, just the same example you can see here. I am creating another new message is equal to old message and update this division with JS. Now you want to remove the first child, that means the previous one. Then you have to use remove child and what is latest, that is your main variable from your HTML dot, okay, or you can, yeah, you can use, and what is you are going to remove? The first child. We have seen just now that we can use first child, next sibling, okay, like that way. The same way you have to define. So you should know that what is the exactly syntax, what is the property you have to use, you should know that. If you want to append, means add, right? You want to append anything, any new child, then you can just write append child and then you are going to document dot. You just now see that you want a text node or you want a sibling node, whatever you want. Then if I want text node, then I am going to use create text node and then pass the new message. This will change your HTML, whatever you have used using this create text node and append child. And this is the DOM functions for the, like, you can modify the element in more rigorous way. That is whatever the way. Means you want to more modification to be done, whatever it has given in HTML document, and you want to print something here. That means you want to add something, remove something. That is possible using the DOM element. Now changing an element style. Suppose you want to change the style property, right? We have seen in CSS. That is also possible with help of DOM. So we can add or remove any style, okay, using the style or class name property. You have to use two things, either a style or class name property of the element name. And the usage, you can see here the below the example. I am using a variable, that is the comment tag, and what I have to do, I have to specify the some tag, right? Then I will use document.get element by id, and wherever you have defined like a specific tag in the style, then you take that one and you are going to change, right? I want to change the background of the particular color. Then I will take as a comment tag dot style dot background color is equal to some num code. Then automatically it will get changed. If you want to change the same border width, then you can use comment tag dot style dot border width, okay, and you can define this, right? Like this way we can change the style, all style property in the with help of DOM. Next, like again for further, if you want to change an element style, then you can use the like class name property. That is the better choice. You can see here I am using here directly. You more you understand with the example. So in previously what we have done, here we have done just with the style. What style you want to change? I want to change with only background color. I want to change border width. Then only this two is going to change. Suppose you want to change with the class name, then how you can do that? That is also possible. For that, you have to use the class name property, right? The same way you declare a variable, okay, the same way you use document.get element by id and a specific tag. Now what you want to change? The particular class name, right? Then you have to use the variable dot, that is the object you have to, that is the class name, is equal to some class name you are going to do. And especially in HTML5 introduces the class list element, okay, where you can, that is not possible in HTML, remember guys, HTML earlier version. Now mostly the people develop their application on based on HTML5, or you say responsive, or you say bootstrap. That means in this HTML5 they allow to add, remove, or toggle a CSS. That means you can add these properties into the HTML5 only. You can see the example here, like label dot class list. What is that? You are going to add the class. What class you want to add? You can specify some class name, whichever you want you can add. But this was not possible in normal HTML. It is only possible in HTML5. You can see some of the properties of the element properties. You can see that, like href. You know that href is used for the hyperreference, right? You can specify the tag into the URL. If you want to use name property, that means you want to identify using the name, and then you can use name where your anchor tag, input tag, text, form you can define. If you are using any SRC, you know that SRC is used for the linking external resource, right? Like any image file, any input parameter you are going to take, any iframe you are going to take, any scripting you are going to link. Even though you are going to take as your style sheet also, right? That is using the SRC, right? You are going to link that. Then that you are going to use SRC. Value, you know that, right? When you want to declare an input, that means the value what you are going to accept in that. Text area what you are going to, when they are going to submit, what value it should be submitted. These are the property that you have to use in element properties with certain tags. Next we have about the JavaScript events. What is the JavaScript events? The action, right? The JavaScript event is an action that can be detected by JavaScript. Okay. When we say then that what happened, an event will trigger, right? That means whenever you do any functionality, then what happens? Some function need to be used. Then how you are going to use that you have to specify, right? That means when I am filling the form, what happened? You are writing some data, and at the end you are going to hit submit button. The moment you hit submit, what is that? Actually that is the event is happening. That means the action is going to perform over there. That means it is going to trigger what functionality should run. That is actually your JavaScript event. And when event is going to trigger, then it will be got by JavaScript function, and it will do the functionality as per the response what it is given there. That is your JavaScript event. In original JavaScript world, that means when we talk about the normal JavaScript, okay, events could be specified right in the HTML markup with the hooks to the JavaScript code. That means directly you add the event into the JavaScript code. Even though if you want to use this event, then you can develop you can use this into the framework. What is the framework? Like framework will be having the some like on based on MVC architecture, model, view, and control. Okay, and when you are going to define any, that is design the website, or when you want to define your method, that means whatever the functionality you are going to define, that should be like more secure way, then you are going to use some framework. Okay, when you use the framework, okay, so it has all developed with the help of the JavaScript, and the website designed. Okay, and there might be, you have seen that Magento, that I'll tell you, the CMS content management system, that is on framework only. You can use, there are several frameworks are there. When you go and see that those frameworks, there is already, they have used this entire JavaScript events functionality. It will work accordingly. You should not worry about that. Okay, what are the other functionality? It's basic functionality required. Basic functionality will be there, and it will give you a powerful framework. You can see here the event when you are going to use, we have two different approaches. One is the old techniques what we were following. You can see both it is here. What I have done here, I have used a script tag, right? And I am using the source is equal to inline.js. That means you have written the inline.js code here. There you have a JavaScript file, okay, and you have written some code. Then you are writing some form, right? And in the form, again, when it is going to submit, again you are going to call the method from the inline.js. So whenever you want the technique, that it need to be accessed from the JavaScript. Every moment it has to be accessed. You can see every line, it is going to the JavaScript file. Okay, where it is defined this, on over, what is this defined? It need to be taken care. On click submit, the validation, it's going to be submitted. Every line that is we are using here, we have used the JavaScript in every line. And every time it is calling, what will happen in this case? This case, what happened? The load time of the particular website, it will get slow. Right? That's what in few days back we have discussed, that why when you select a country and the next we have to select the state, the page get refreshed and then we will be able to select the state or city, because of this functionality, because of old techniques of JavaScript events. But the new techniques, that is called as your layered listener technique, you can see that we have only one JavaScript file, and you are not going to write every line the JavaScript event. Once you define the listener.js and you are defining the name is equal to main form, so this will be automatically here. That means the moment you hit the submit button, it will go to the listener.js and it will check entire validation, and it say that yes, the completed validation is successful and you can proceed. Like this way we can do it. And that's why our now current or whatever the website you open, it's open very fast. It's not going to refresh because of this layered listener technique. That is the advantage. That's what I suggested you previously also. You use this technique only, then only your application will be load faster. As we seen that, right? Inline event handler approach, right? What happened? You have a tag, that is the HTML element, where we have defined on click alert hello. That means the moment you click on pop up text as a click here to pop up, it will appear here hello, right? So what the problem with we have with this type of programming with the HTML, that means it will not use the layer technique. One thing, it will not separate the content from the behavior, right? And every moment you have to functionality you have to define, that means event you have to define every line, right? And this is the problem over here. I don't want, when the moment users submit the button, then it should give the alert, then it's okay. That is the inline event handler approach. Where in listener approach, right, we say that we have two ways to set up the listeners. Both you can see here. Like the old style, what we have done, we are just creating a variable as a greeting box, and you are defining, that is, you are taking from the HTML element ID, that is example 1, and I am giving here greeting box dot on click. The moment someone click, then what will happen? Good morning message should give. This is the separately we are doing. Okay, we are not doing in the inline. We are doing now listener approach. The moment you click the event, this is going to happen. Even this is listener, even if this is the old step. Let's see what is the next one. Example, you can see here I am using the same way greeting box, the same get by element ID. I am taking the HTML element from the HTML document what we have defined. Now I am giving greeting box dot add event listener. What happened? The event listener we are going to assign. What will be the event listener? When someone click, it will alert goodbye. When the mouse will out, then it will give the alert goodbye. And this will work in the latest browser, that is above IE 8. If you have IE 8 version, then this functionality will not, this JavaScript event listener will not happen. Then how you have to use? Simple, you have to use that attach event, okay, and then click. That means it will give you the attach, that is the good morning message. Okay, and this way you can register the listeners. You have some more functionality. You can use the function also. So what if you wanted to do something more elaborate, when you want the event to be triggered, right? When you want the event to be triggered, in such case you have to use encapsulated. Within the function you are going to encapsulate the event. That how it is possible? Let's see here. The same way, so far we have seen just about the variable. Okay, now if you have the function, then how you can do that? The same way you can use the function, some function name. Okay, create a variable, and I am going to define as a date method. You are going to print this alert. You clicked on which date, that means d dot to a string. So date will be converted into a string. Now you have to display this date, right? Then what you are going to do? You have to display in the document, right? In the HTML element. Then you have to define another variable. What you are going to do? Where? That is the element is example 1. The moment on click will happen, it will display the date. The same way, if you using the other approach, then you are going to use element dot add event listener and then click and display the date. So this way you can add the function and you can call the method into the JavaScript. And when you want anonymous function to be used, if you remember, while JavaScript we have discussed about in the function we have discussed about the anonymous function. How it will be there? The same way you can see here. I am using the variable element and taking the element ID as a example 1. Now I am creating the element dot on click function. This is the anonymous function. Why anonymous function? Because we have not, you can see here no function has defined. Directly we are calling this function, right? That means directly defining the function, and whatever you want to define, you define directly. The moment on click will happen, this function will get executed. And you can see that after the methods, here closing brace, opening and closing brace is there, after the semicolon, because the function is going to happen within this and it will terminate, because this is the line for event dot on click. So it need to be terminated. That's why I am giving here. Because if you see that, no, I am using function, how we can give the semicolon? Otherwise it will not execute. No, we are doing this for this line, that is the element dot on click event, right? That means this way you can use anonymous function in JavaScript also. Next, about the event object. So no matter which types of event you are going to encounter, and all DOM object event, okay, and the event handlers that all are associated with them, and can be accessed and also manipulated. When you typically see about this here, this function, the example here, we have used a function handler, okay, with the sum parameter e, right? You can see a function sum handler name and you pass the sum event, right? Some handler name, that is the e. The e is the event when the trigger this handle, when you are going to use this, okay, when you want to trigger the functionality. You have the several options in event object, that is the bubble, okay, then cancelable and prevent default. What is the bubbles? This bubble property is a boolean value, and if the event bubble property is set to true, you know that, right? In boolean value, if you set true, okay, then what happen? The event will trigger, okay, and it will be the handler will be placed to the handler, and the event or the bubble is up to the parent element what you are defining. If you want to use the cancelable property, then even you can define. This is also one of the boolean value. That is, what is the boolean? It's true or false, right? That means you want to execute or you want to cancel it. You can use this also. If you are defining prevent default, okay, then prevent default, that also can be used. That means you want to cancel the default action whatever has been defined using the event. Then just use this method as a prevent default method, and this method will go to the next. Okay, you can see the here example. I have used here a function that is a submit button clicked, right? If someone clicked on submit button, okay, now I want the event handler function, okay, to prevent the default event. What is the default event? That is, when I click, it should get submit. But no, I want to cancel the event, right? Then you have to add a function with the function handler, that is the submit button clicked. You pass the handler, that is e. Now if e is cancelable, okay, then what happens? If e is cancelled, then e dot prevent default. So default, what is the prevention is it? That is, it will happen, it will get executed. This, then you can prevent the default behavior execution in the event. And we know that we have several types of event, right? That is like mouse event, keyword events, form events, frame events. These are the events we have into the JavaScript. That means mouse functionality, right? Suppose you click on the left click, when you click on right click, when you double click, right? When you want to scroll up, right? These are the mouse event. Keyboard event, what you are going to do, the up arrow key. These all are the events, right? Form, what you are going to do the form. Frame, this all events are there, okay? And